want candy? Want candy now?
What is going on, everybody? This is Nazdarachi, and I am coming at you guys today with another episode of Relic Review. Today we are checking out the As the Sky Falls Final Fantasy VIII banner. Finally something new after we didn't get a second banner for the Type 0 event. Now, this first banner is going to mostly be focused around Cipher and Squall. You have BSBs and USBs for both of them. Most of the items are returning items. Both the BSB2 for Squall and the BSB1 for Cipher are returning. Then you have some new Legend and Materia relics, as well as 2 new USBs. Everything else is going to kind of be filler returning material, some of which is not going to be very good unless you're using it for potential SID missions. That aside, we are going to jump in and check out the Relic banner. Now, I'm going to go ahead and state in my personal opinion, I think that the second banner is going to be better. It's going to be featuring a lot of powerful magic relics for Renoa, Fujin, Idea. Some other stuff's going to be on there, but we'll check that out on Sunday when it drops. I do have relevant and accurate percent information for these draws. So, let's go ahead here and jump right in. The first item is going to be the Ice Brand. This is Squall's USB, and it is kind of underwhelming. Now, the stats are looking at 174 attack, nothing else, so the attack stat is pretty good. And unfortunately, the synergy bonus ice damage small boost is not going to be ultra helpful. Cipher's USB does feature a consistently active plus fire, so that's going to be the better stat stick of these two here. Now, it does look cool, but the Ultra Soul Break is going to be the Brutal Blast. Deal 9 physical ice and non-elemental attacks to one target, reduce the delay of the user's actions for 2 turns, and temporarily enter Seed EX mode. Seed EX mode causes every second Spellblade ability used to trigger a 4-hit AoE attack that does 4 physical ice non-elemental attacks. There are some mixed reviews I'm already seeing online for this Ultra Soul Break here. The Seed EX mode kind of stacks with this BSB2, but the BSB2 honestly can stand by itself. It does enough damage and is reliable enough that you can really just kind of recast the Steely Blade over and over again, and you don't really have to consider this. Unfortunately, this EX mode here doesn't come with anything other than that AoE attack, so you're not getting any plus attack or any delay reduction on the EX mode. Now, you do have the 2 turns of delay reduction along with the 9 physical hits, which a lot of other USBs are featuring 10 hits. This one seems to lose a hit compared to some others. I'm sure there's other USBs out there that are going to be in line with this one. Probably Cipher's, if I had to guess. But yeah, all in all, it's not awful, but I don't know. When you compare it to other EX modes, it's not going to fit quite as well, mainly because his BSP2 is just so powerful by itself. And this doesn't really give you any buffs. Like, yeah, the 2 turns of delay reduction are going to be useful, but you got to think about that. Like, when are you going to cast the BSB? If you cast the BSB before you cast this by 1 turn, then you're going to lose out on 1 turn of Drawn Junction, because you'll cast the BSB and then lose a turn of your BSB time casting this. If you cast this first and then the BSB, then you're starting your EX mode late, comparatively speaking, if you were to use the EX mode and then immediately lead into an Ice Spellblade ability. So with that being said, there is no perfect way to utilize this with what Squall has going on, which is why I'm going to say it's going to be the lesser useful USB on this banner. Cipher's is going to be better in my opinion. And let's check out your percent chance to draw. Ice Brand here is looking at about 0.97%. And any closing thoughts? It is just kind of underwhelming. And honestly, you might prefer just BSB, using the BSB over and over again into his OSB if you have it, because, you know, the OSB will deliver some pretty good damage all in one solid chunk, whereas this USB is going to take a lot of turns to really get the maximum benefit. With all that being said, if you are a huge fan of Squall, I can't really argue against you pulling for that relic right there. It's just not something that I personally would go for. Next up, we do have the USB for Cipher here, the Forbidden Fell Slash. It is going to be the Almacy Flame Tongue, 173 attack, so we lose 1 point of attack as compared to Squall's Gunblade, but we get the bonus effect that's constantly active. So no other stats on it. You do get that small boost to fire damage in all situations, making this a great relic right here. Ultra Soul Break Forbidden Fell Slash deals 7 physical dark and fire attacks to 1 target. Temporarily infuse the user with the power of dark and restore a very large amount of HP to the user. The damage dealt is increased the lower Cipher's hit points are. So this is a very good utility tool for Cipher. It's basically going to feed into his tanking mechanics. Now, he's not the strongest tank in the game. If you're looking for a better dark tank, I would honestly recommend Golbez. But with that being said, if you combine this with his BSB and you have his Legend Materia in there where if he continually takes damage, he's going to buff his own attack stat, you do have some really good options for dealing damage as well as kind of saving your teammates here. So you do as well get the End Dark. That's going to combo well. We use this first, then lead into his BSB. There's no EX mode on this USB, unfortunately, but with that being a factor, you don't have to worry about any type of crazy timing or how to combo things together. You'll basically want to use the USB, you'll get the End Dark, then you can lead that into his BSB. If you have his LMR equipped as well, he'll be tanking that damage. His Burst Command 2 allows him to kind of self-heal a little bit. This will heal him as well when you use this, so I don't personally like the mechanic of dealing more damage the lower your HP is, because it's a very risky mechanic. But with that being said, with this point in the game there are a lot of last stands, so you can play that risk and get much closer to dying and then using this without really it being as much of a risk, because you'll have last stand, you know, Eco's USB, you have Yuna, you have plenty of other characters now, even Rajan, I believe, on this banner. Or the next banner. It's on one of these two banners, but Rajan will have the SSB that's got Last Stand on it as well as instant casts. So you can play this a little bit more recklessly nowadays than back what it would have been, you know, even 6 months ago. But I like this a lot better than Squall's USB. I already have Cipher's BSB and him leveled, so I'm probably only going to make a 100 gem draw on this banner in favor of maybe pulling on Banner 2 or Final Fantasy IV. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do yet. With my 100 gem, if I had to pick a USB, it would definitely be Cipher here. And it looks like you have about a 1.15% chance to pull it, so it is a little bit higher than Squall's USB. And that's probably a good thing. Moving forward, I can proceed through all the rest of the items on the banner relatively quickly because they are all returning items except for the LMRs, but those don't take very long. So we do have Squall's BSB2 here. This is an amazing relic. If you haven't pulled for this relic or you haven't gotten it yet, now or the 30 Fest would be a good time to probably plan to draw for it. So you do have the 137 attack, no bonus effects, Steely Blade, 8 physical ice non-elemental attacks to 1 target. You got the N Ice, Haze Burst Mode to the user. The entry is just kind of standard for elemental ice physical entry. You do have the 1 target, so it will be a little bit higher damage than if it was an AoE. That's noticeable and good. But the burst abilities are what really make this a very standout relic here. They both do trigger as Spellblade, so you can potentially use them with the USB, but there's just not really an optimal way to do it. You're just kind of throwing stuff around a little haphazardly if that's your strategy. The BSB recast into eventual OSB is probably the stronger strategy with Squall here. You have Draw Injunction, the 2 physical ice non-elemental attacks to 1 target. If you have Burst Mode, you raise the junction level by 1. It'll stack up to 3, and that's just going to extremely benefit this Low and Roar second burst command here. 4 to 7 physical ice non-elemental attacks to 1 target. Number, powerful, and critical strike chance of the attacks depends on the user's junction level. So I'm not going to look up what the exact numbers are, but they are pretty significant. You get the full number of 7 attacks if you do it 3 times, and it's really powerful, you guys. It is a good strategy, like I said, to just recast this. It'll do a lot of damage just by itself, and it's a great standalone relic that makes Squall, an exceptional ice user, and also Spellblade. If you combine this with some of his legend materia that allows him to W cast or dual cast, this can proc twice in one command, and as well, this can proc twice also. So with his double cast capabilities, this is a very powerful BSB. It's already known to be very good, and on this banner, it seems like it has about a 0.98% drop chance. So we're going to squeeze on forward here to the Almasy Shear Trigger. This is a BSB for Cipher, and I've been able to play test this one a little bit. I do like it. It's got some fairly unique mechanics on it, and it's been fun to have. I like Cipher as a character, so I don't mind having stuff for him. And with his USB combo on this banner now, it is honestly, in my opinion, the more powerful USB. Like I've already mentioned that. So scooting on forward here, no bonus effects. You have 8 physical dark non-elemental attacks to one target, attract single target physical and black magic attacks to the user, raise the defense a very large amount, and grant haste and burst mode to the user. So on entry, you're going to want to make sure you worry about resistance, because you're going to be absorbing black magic and it's not buffing the resistance. So keep that in mind. But you also have the 8 physical dark non-elemental attacks to one target. The end dark on the USB will benefit this, so if you're able to cast the USB first leading into this, it's definitely going to help out and raise that damage for you there a little bit. Desperate Madness, very unique burst command. I like this one a lot. It makes this relic stand out, and a very nice collectible relic for Cipher here. 4 physical dark non-elemental attacks to one target. Temporarily lower the user's defense a large amount and resistance a moderate amount, and grant the user a barrier that reflects damage. Damage reflected increases the more times the ability is used, up to 300%. So if you cast this 3 times back to back, his version of Radiant Shield is going to be reflecting 300%, so 3 times basically the damage back at the opponent. That's pretty awesome. I like that a lot. He will be tanking. Now, you are making the stat sacrifices. The defense one's a little interesting because you gain a very large amount from the entry. You're actually not losing anything here because you're losing large, but you've already gained very large. So you're still in the green a little bit on your defense stat, but you're going to be lowering your resistance. So he's going to be very weak to black magic. You're going to have to definitely take that in mind. Shelga him, throw a wall on him, do whatever you have to do to buff his resistance, because he's going to be taking a lot of magic damage if you are using this in that type of dungeon. So downfall, burst command 2, physical dark non-elemental damage to one target, healing the user for a portion of the damage dealt. This burst command 2 I feel like is tacked on here just in mind with the fact that he's going to be tanking all this damage, so they threw another heal on him so he can heal himself in addition to whatever healer you may have on the team. So if you're playing your Cipher fast and loose and you're planning on using the USB at low health, you do that, lead into the BSB. If for whatever reason he's still at low health after setting him up here, you can potentially use this second command here. You are going to want to focus on that USB into burst command 1 here. Now if you don't have the USB, this is still functional. I believe you can get the end dark from his glove, his SSB. So there's still other options here, and this is still a viable relic even without the USB. Seems like you have a 1.19% chance to pull this, so it seems like they're showing Cipher favoritism on this banner over Squall, just a very minute amount. Next up we have Quistis' BSB. Quistis is one of 2 poison or bio spellcasters in the game, and then you have a couple other characters who are proficient in poison, like Thancred and Edgar, I believe, are both good for a poison-themed team. But Quistis, this relic, even though it's dated, still has a lot of standout features that make it worthwhile. You have very standard light armor stats here, 17 magic, 112, 112 defense and resistance, and no bonus effects. You have the Burst Soulbreak, Hail to the Queen, 8 magic poison non-elemental attacks to random targets, temporarily infuse the user with the power poison, and haste burst mode to the user. Your burst abilities here, Cloying Fragrance, 4 magic poison and non-elemental attacks to one target with a small chance to poison, blind, silence, and confuse it. And Vile Ichor, 2 magic poison non-elemental attacks to all targets, temporarily lower the defense of the user and raise the user's magic a moderate amount. So you do have the bargain on Burst Command 2. You'll definitely want to lead with that and then just start spamming the Cloying Fragrance. In certain situations, these debuffs here can be pretty useful. A lot of high-level bosses are going to be able to resist them, so it's not going to be useful everywhere. But still, Poison Mage is very rare in this game. Poison effects in general are pretty rare, so if you're thinking about building a poison-themed team, you're definitely going to want to consider throwing Quist on here. And again, this is a pretty good BSB. I wouldn't mind if I picked this one up off a 100 gem draw in the slightest. I already have Edgar well built, and I have Thancred's BSB too, so I have a poison team in the works already. Your percent chance to draw the dress here is about 0.76%. Pretty rare. I would love to pick that up, but I don't think it's going to happen. Legend Materia here. We're at the Lion's Gloves here for Squall. Bracers, 31 attack, 96 defense, 18 magic, 92 resistance, and 18 mind. So I guess for synergy purposes on whoever might be wearing these bracers, they do have those split stats right there. No bonus effects, unfortunately no ice damage or resistance. And you begin battle temporarily infused with the power of ice. This is kind of selectively functional. If you're in a situation where ice damage is neutral or favored, then it'll definitely help you out. Obviously in a situation where you're going against an enemy who resists ice, then this is not going to be super useful. He already has a W cast mechanic, so he doesn't need that on an LMR, but I don't know, if you happen to pick this up and you've already built Squall, if you have his BSB2 and his OSB, begin battle with already infused ice, it'll help a little bit. It's definitely not something that's going to hurt. Definitely his double cast materia is his most important one. So this is kind of skippable right here in my opinion. You're looking at a 1.03% chance to draw it. I wouldn't want this relic to be my first LMR. Cipher's is a little bit more favorable on this banner. Next up, we are at Cipher's LMR here, the Relentless Assassin. Both armor LMRs on this banner here, so the weapons are going to be the 2 USBs and BSBs, and then you have armor for each one of them here. And I believe each one of them gets an additional piece of armor, at least Cipher does, I know. Light armor, 17 attack, 115 defense resistance, and he does get the small boost to dark damage. So again, just more and more stacking evidence as to why Cipher's relics are better in my opinion on this banner, except for Squall's BSB2. That one is definitely debatable there, but overall USB LMR definitely better than Squall's. So you have the Legend Materia Relentless Assassin here. Increase the user's attack a moderate amount proportional to the number of attacks the user has taken. This is taking into consideration Cipher's tanking abilities, whether it be off his BSB or Gaia Cross or even Draw Fire, whatever you happen to have to get him to tank damage. This is going to work in tandem with that and benefit him pretty functionally well. I like this one much better than Squall's LMR because it's going to be functional in all situations when you're using Cipher as he's kind of intended to be used. So I would prefer this one, 10 out of 10, and it looks like you're at a 0.84% chance to draw this one. So first relic we've seen where Squall actually has a improved drop rate over Cipher here, and that's unfortunate because this one is the better relic. Boost to dark damage and just better effects in general. And we have a Super Soul Break for Laguna here. It is the Vega gun, 112 attack, so not so great on the stats. Freezing Barrage, Super Soul Break, 7 ranged physical ice attacks to all targets and imperil their ice resistance. A lot of ice themed stuff in Final Fantasy VIII we can see. This will squeeze in there and be somewhat relevant. He can make use of it now because there is also that new Gunslinger 5-star ice ability. He can actually make good on that now instead of having to just recast this and spam this. Lots of SSBs for good old Laguna here because I already have 2 SSBs for him as it is. So these SSBs like this are kind of losing relevancy with all the more powerful stuff that we see coming out now. But again, like I said, it's not completely useless. You will be able to squeeze it in there. And your percent chance to draw the Vega here is about 2.26% chance, so much more boosted than the other items, but we are down to the Super Soul Break, so Kind of makes sense. Next up, we have Cipher's SSB glove here. This is actually not terrible or irrelevant. So you have bracers here, 26 attack, 94 defense, 18 magic, 90 resistance, 19 mind. Once again, split stats so that anybody can really wear them. You do as well get the small boost to dark damage. So if you don't happen to snag his LMR and you get this instead, you still will be able to make good on having plus dark damage on something that he's got going on here. So basically it's just another chance for you to get a plus dark damage relic for him here. His LMR will feature it as well as this, so hopefully you'll get one or the other if you're making pulls for these people here. You have the Super Soul Break Death by Committee. Deal 8 physical, dark, lightning, and wind attacks to one target. Temporarily lower the user's defense a moderate amount. And raise the attack and magic of all allies a moderate amount. So, if you're squeezing this in with his other mechanics, remember you're going to be losing more defense stat here. So, you will be raising it a very large amount with his BSB. Then you'll be lowering it a large amount with BSB Command 1. This could be another potential moderate loss to his defense here. So keep all of that in mind when you're playing this strategy here, that Cipher's got a lot of debuffs going on. The good news is it is an onion buff for the whole team. So in a Sid mission or synergy based situation, you do get that effect off of this without having to necessarily roaming warrior onion knight. So that is something to be considered. You get the 8 attacks as well that have 3 different elements on them with dark, lightning, and wind. So again, this is a kind of a dated relic and is not necessarily optimal, but you do have good features on here that would make you potentially consider using this one still. I definitely wouldn't mind having this one as well, even just for the plus dark damage, because currently when I use Cipher, I'm throwing Sephiroth's glove on him for that effect there. But in a Final Fantasy VIII situation, this would definitely help. So your chance to pull Cipher's gloves here seems to be around 2.13% chance. Next up we have the Red Scorpion. It is an SSB whip for Quistis here. You have no bonus effects, 80 attack, 117 magic. So you do have the Super Soul Break Mighty Guard, grant shell, haste, and major regen to all allies. I wouldn't think that you'd see much usage on this outside of a Sid mission type situation. It does alleviate one ability slot, and you get the Hastega effect, which if you combine that with Cipher's SSB, you have the effects of Onion Knight without any burst commands for your whole team there. But with that being said, if you have her BSB, I probably wouldn't recommend wasting the Soul Break gauge on this right here. Just get the Hastega from somewhere else, a roaming warrior if you have to, and Shelga just use an ability slot, and keep recasting her BSB over and over again. So, again, I don't really particularly like this relic. I would not like to see this one show up, and it's looking like a 2.31% chance for it to drop there. Dream Stage, Crescent Wish for Selfie here, some more Nunchaku. It classifies as a rod, which is quite interesting. 49 attack, 100 magic, and 121 mind. No bonus effects. You do have the Super Soul Break Dream Stage. Restore a large amount of HP to all allies. Enable them to avoid 1 magic attack. This is getting slightly dated, but it is still perfectly functional. If you need the magic blinks and the heal, you can spam this out. You may or may not, depending on if you have it, need to balance this with her USB and some of her other Soul Breaks, but I remember using this quite a bit back in the day, 6 to 7 plus months ago. I would use this to get through some harder content when I didn't have the healing that I needed, because it was pretty useful. The magic blink spam is definitely a viable strategy if you need to get past some really rough AoE magic attacks. So I'm not going to say that I want this relic, but I'm not going to be disappointed if I happen to 100 gem it, because I could sure benefit from any type of white magic or healing effects in Final Fantasy VIII. It seems like you have about a 1.18% chance to pull the Crescent Wish here, and that is all the items on the banner. We've come full circle. For now, I am only going to do a 100 gem draw because I think I would rather pull, like I said, on either banner 2 for Fujin stuff primarily, or save it for Final Fantasy 4 or 5. Maybe 7, but I think 7 might be kind of a trap for me personally, because all I really need is stuff with Vincent, and Zack's Chain Soulbreak. So unfortunately, we only got a 3-star piece of jank here. Not going to use this ever. Just Claymore. We're going to go ahead and sell that for some gil. If you enjoyed this episode of Relic Review, definitely toss me a like. If you didn't enjoy it, toss me a thumbs down. I don't really mind either way. Just some type of interactivity never hurts. Helps spread me out on YouTube a little bit. I hope you did enjoy the episode, and I would love for you guys to comment what you pulled or what you're saving for down in the comments section below. Hopefully you guys have already subbed, and if you're new to the channel, this is Nazdarachi. I would love for you to join up and see you guys back again in the future. So, with all that said, Banner 2 is probably the stronger banner. These are my closing thoughts here. And, I don't know. If you really want stuff for Squall or Cipher, definitely wager some pulls here. It's not going to be really detrimental. But, again, like I said, I think Banner 2 is probably the stronger banner, or potentially saving for future events. So, I hope you guys do have a great Saturday, and I'll definitely be catching you probably tomorrow or Monday for the second banner. This is Nazdarachi once again. I will be seeing you soon, and have a good one, y'all. Peace out.